I declared, this is what I am. And if this is what I am, then this is what I do. And then when I started to do the things that aligned with who I believe I am, the world started to adapt. As I'm sitting here sort of reflecting, I'm realizing that I'm entering a new phase of this new season. So if I'm thinking about it, it feels like phase one was the clarification phase, right? Like where I had to talk about what are my values, what's my flow, what are my intentions, right? And I had to kind of clarify that. And that feels like, for me, the being part of this new identity. And now I feel like I'm moving into the doing part, which is, as this version of me, what do I do? How do I move through the world? What is my offering? And this is something that's, I think, super important about the process of revealing more of yourself to yourself and then ultimately to the world, is that oftentimes when we want to see change in our lives, we want to see new outcomes and create new experiences, we start at the level of behavior. And while I do believe that action breeds clarity and you just got to start and do something to begin to get some clarity about whatever it is that you're actually doing, like I do believe that. But I also believe that for change to be sustainable, for it to really stick, it can't stay only at the level of behavior. It has to sink into the level of being, meaning you have to think about your identity in a different way in order for the new behaviors to actually stick and be meaningful and really become something that you're integrating into your sense of self. So not just like a new thing that you're trying, but a new way that you're being. And so for me, that first phase was that. It was the foundational phase of, as I'm reinventing myself, how do I define that sense of self? Create space in my life for my creative self to start to flourish. How am I presenting? What is my offering? What is my message? All of that, right? And so I was clarifying those things, and that was the beginning phase of like being. And then I'm now feeling myself entering the next phase of doing. It's actually very exciting. I feel much more clear about what it is I am doing, right? Which before was more so like, what does this even mean to say I'm a creative? Like, how am I defining that? There's all these ideas about what it means, right? What we consider to be a creative, I think. Because when I think about it, I've always been creative. And all the work that I've ever done has been creative, but not in the traditional sense that it was like art. Definitely taking something or making something out of an idea, right? Making a thought into a thing that others can experience. So I think that inherently is creative. But again, it wasn't in the traditional sense of like things that we consider art. So yeah, I was kind of like just trying that on, like how do I define what it means to be creative? And I think I just offered a little bit of insight, which is like, whenever I take something from a thought to a thing, from a concept to something that I create, that I produce into the world that other people can experience, that to me is the definition of a creative. And what I'm understanding now is that my expression of my creative self is evolving into something that we more traditionally understand as art. And as I've mentioned briefly before, for me, that is specifically writing. Now that I've clarified that, in this process of like trying on the creative self and defining what that means for me and becoming that, embodying that, embracing that as my identity, now the being is starting to inform the doing, and the behavioral changes are starting to show up with more intention, right? So before it was just like pop on the camera, capture yourself, get the process. And now I'm starting to feel myself go, oh, okay, this is what I'm actually here to do, right? Like it's not question mark, question mark. It's more like period, if that makes sense. I guess that's the writer in me trying to get you to sort of feel the difference between like exploration and declaration, right? Like, I'm a creative. What does that mean? I'm a creative. Here's what I do. Is I feel like I'm entering that. Like, I'm a creative. Here's what I do. It feels good. Because I am clear about my values, as I work on this next project of writing, I can have something to touch back on to say, does this align with what I'm saying? Are my creative values, and does this feel honest to me? You know, is it full of emotion, right? Like sustainable. Whew. And interestingly, sustainable is taking on a different meaning for me, because before it meant the creative process of becoming and sharing what that looks like needed to be sustainable for me energetically. Now sustainable is sort of evolving into a meaning more like, is the work itself sustainable? Meaning, what I write today, what I say today, what I feel today, will it make sense? Will it be relevant? I can't anticipate that, but there are some universal truths that I believe just stick and last through time, and I certainly want to do my best to be a vessel for those truths to come through me into this project that I'm writing, right, for sure. And so sustainability is both now about my process, but also my product. Making the process of creating the thing sustainable so that it comes from the purest place within me, but also what I produce, I want that to be sustainable. I want it to last through time. So sustainability, even as one of my creative values, has taken on a new meaning or a more expanded meaning in this phase, which I'm deeply appreciating. It's also allowing me, now that I've sort of said, like, here's my capacity for how much time I can put aside. If I'm saying like, okay, this creative self is emerging, right? And I need to make room for her. And I need to be intentional about seeing where she fits into all the other parts of me that are still active and still need to be active. In doing that, now as this new project enters, I know exactly the space and time that I have to work on it, right? To say, okay, I'm going to write for X amount of time. I need to make sure that I protect my calendar every week and carve this time out. Even, however wherever I need to put it, it's going to bounce around, maybe not be the same day, same time all the time, but I need to, every week as I'm scheduling meetings and thinking about other things, always put the writer on the calendar. And finding my flow in that identity phase helped me understand that and plan for that. My intention clear as I've been doing this, and this is kind of going back to that idea that action breeds clarity. As I've been doing this series with all of you and sharing my process and thinking deeply about what is it that I can extract from this moment that feels like something I can hold on to as a step, right? Because I'm creating a guide for like, what are the steps? Now, will they be in the same order all the time? Don't know, right? I don't know. But what I'm creating, because I've been here so many times, and I feel like I'm going to be here so many more times. And for the people who choose to engage consciously in their own evolutionary process, we come to this place of newness frequently, and not suggesting that there's any level of universal absoluteness in terms of like, this is how it goes, do the things and you're ready. Like, that's not what I'm saying at all. What I am saying though is that some of the feelings that we have, some of the questions that come up, some of the challenges that we face, those things are true through and through. No matter who you are, where you come from, and what you're doing, there are certain things that are universally human that we all feel, experience, and face in our lives. And that's sort of what I'm wanting to speak to. And for me, having something like this would be helpful. So I think if it would help me, it would likely help you or somebody you know. So, phase one, reinventing myself as a creative, clarifying and defining what that even means on an identity level. Like, what does that mean for me as a person, thinking of myself as a creative? Now it's stepping into the maker phase, the not just the being, but the doing of this new identity, the behavior, and now building on the framework or the foundation that I became clear about in that first phase, and now integrating those practices, rituals, routines, etc., to actually make the thing. Very excited about that, because I know that inside of this, what's also going to start to come up is, I've never done this before. So there's going to be skills I'm going to have to learn to do this. Now that I'm clear about what it is I'm doing, there's going to be a lot of imagination, which is why I'm outside today, because the way my mind works, I like to project in pictures and see the thing, like in my mind, really see it, but project it out like I'm watching it on the screen. So I need space when I do that. When I am ideating and imagining what is possible for whatever I'm doing, right? Whatever I'm doing. I do this even when I'm creating academic curriculum, right? Like, when I'm in the ideation phase, I need space, because my brain needs to be able to project all these different ideas out and then spread them out like I'm spreading cards across the table. Like, that's how I need to be able to do it. Again, because I've been here, I'm reflecting on what are the things I can expect for this part of the process. So there's going to be lots of skills learning. There's going to be lots of going back to specific bodies of work that, for me, take me to the place I need to be in and to create from. So there's going to be a lot of that, a lot of revisiting works that have inspired me, a lot of finding new works to help also inspire community. I'm going to be leaning on folks, because now I'm clear about what I'm doing. I'm also getting clear about what I need, and I'm getting clear about who I know that has what I need. And this is where I start to tap in, right? So I already have some things set up this week for learning, right? Folks that I know do what I'm trying to do. Can you help me learn? Boom. So that's the phase that I'm entering. And it feels like, if stage one was about clarifying who I'm being, then stage two, I would say, is about experimenting with what I'm doing. This is the part where I think people most identify with their concept of being a creative, because this is the part where I start to put out works that people can identify as, oh, this was made by fill in the blank person. In that case, me. That's also kind of exciting. And I will say, the messy hallway episode, because that's the way I conceptualize this part of the process that I'm in. Like, just this part, the part, not the part where I make the announcement that I'm about to do a thing, or not the part that made the announcement that I just did a thing. The part where I'm doing the thing in the middle. This is where faith really lives, because I don't know what I'm doing, but I know I'm called to do this, even if I'm not sure what this is, right? That's where faith really comes in. This is where trusting yourself really comes in. All of that. And so I call it the messy hallway. And that last episode was the messy bedroom, which felt like me confronting a fear that I needed to confront to be able to have the courage to step into this phase. Because the experimenting phase, I'm going to get a lot of, it's going to be, if you think that room was messy, this is about to get dirty. So I think I needed to experience, like tiptoe into that a little bit to be able to appreciate the messiness that's coming, because sitting with that message from the last episode between then and now, and thinking about where I believe I am and what I know comes in this phase, there had to be a willingness and a courage to lean into that messiness to really get the most out of what this is about to be. It did definitely feel like a transitional episode of like, okay, I think that first part is clear. Now what? And that messy moment was the bridge to the now what, which is time to start experimenting. Experiments get messy. You have a hypothesis, you test it, maybe you're right, maybe you're not. Then you shift, then you change, then you pivot, then you try again, then you write another draft, then you, right? Like you edit, you, all of those things. And I feel like that's what I'm getting ready to be in for this next however long. I don't know how long it's going to last. I will say, as a general rule, having been through this process of reinventing my identity, this process, and I think I've said this here before, feels expedited. Like I feel like I am zooming through these phases, and it's mostly because I'm asking these questions. I'm anticipating what the process is going to be. I'm opening myself up to it. I'm being intentional about taking the steps. The first time I went through this consciously, the time that I keep referring back to, is in 2017 when I closed my fitness studio and I shifted my identity from, personal trainer, gym owner, to clarity coach, psychologist, and all that meant, given that the dream to be the fitness person was a childhood dream that took me years, 20 to be exact, to bring to fruition. And then I had several years living inside of that dream, and I was transformed and ultimately had to transcend that dream. And hardest decision I've ever made. Resisted it for over a year before I finally surrendered to the truth that was emerging, which was I had outgrown that identity, but it was the only one that I ever allowed myself to really adopt. Again, from childhood. That was, 20 years in the making when it finally happened. And then having to walk away from it felt like all kinds of failure, felt like a lot. And the anniversary of that was May 31st. And so I've actually spent some time revisiting specifically the content that I created during that time. There was specifically a podcast episode that I recorded the morning that I was moving out of the space. Today is May 31st, 2017. My throat is hurting. Has been for a few days. And I think it is a physical reaction to an emotional state that I'm in right now. I woke up this morning to a text message from a friend wishing me a happy anniversary. Today is the 3-year anniversary of my grand opening to Eat, Sleep, Sweat, my fitness studio that has been a dream of mine since I was 13 years old. Today is also the day that I move out of the studio. So exactly 3 years to the date from the day that I had my grand opening celebration, I am having my grand closing move out. So that is why I said I think my sore throat is a physical manifestation of an emotional kind of state of being at the moment. I feel like I am a bit choked up. So some of the things that I said on that podcast, just being reminded of those truths in this season of my life, it made me appreciate the wisdom that I gleaned from going through that and the ways in which that wisdom is paving the path for me in this season of my life. It also made me remember that so much of the life that I'm living now are 100% the harvest of seeds that I planted during that time. Like to the point of like I made vision boards during that time that I'm now living inside of the manifestations of those visions right now today. So being able to revisit that, glean the wisdom from that, intentionally apply it here, and see how it is expediting my process into the what I believe is this I'm in a new season. I'm in the beginning of it. This new season is the budding and flourishing of seeds that I planted in my last season. And I am now, because I'm in the beginning of a new season, scattering seeds that I anticipate will carry me out of this current season as they bloom and open me up for the next opportunities, right? So I have, because I have kept journals for years, and because I have always been super self-reflective, because thanks, Mom. Um, because of that, there's something that I've noticed, and that is my life tends to happen in these like 7-year cycles. Super interesting. So like 7 years ago, well, really, again, this is 2025. So the last major transition of my life was 2017, which, so if we're going 7 years, that would have been 2024, which very much feels like a closeout. 2025 very much feels like the start of a new 7-year cycle, right? So 2017 to 2024. Before 2017, my major life transition was in 2010. So we're talking about, again, a 7-year cycle. Before that, major transition, 2003. So I'm seeing these 7-year cycles happen, and I'm like, okay. So if it is in fact true, then the timeline that I even have for myself, for what I'm currently in, and the writing and the books and all the things that I see for myself, I give myself timelines. Not as a rigid rule that I must follow them, but as a guideline so that I can have something to measure my progress against. And I don't just arbitrarily define those timelines. I define them according to where I want to be in that phase of my life. So when I think about where I want to be in my mid 40s, I'm giving myself X amount of time to build towards that vision. And so what does that look like? And at the beginning of this 7-year cycle for where I am, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, by my mid 40s, I should be about right here. And that feels good to me in terms of what my life could look like. And so then I just work towards that, and I allow, and I receive, and I align, and I listen, and I work, and I learn, and I study, and I try, and I fail, and I try again, and I connect, and I ask, and I just do that in ways that feel relevant to this vision. And I just keep holding it. And then next thing you know, I wake up inside of the answered prayer. That's really what I'm doing. I defined how I want my life to feel. And now I'm in the process of setting myself up to be able to access that feeling for the rest of my life. And it feels really good to be in the seed planting stage of that part of my life. I am living inside of the harvest of seeds that I planted in 2017, right now in 2025. And as I plant new seeds in 2025, I expect to be living in the harvest of those 7 years from now. And I say that with confidence because I have evidence. I have evidence of the way that God has shown up in my life in that way. I know what 7 means in the Bible, right? Completion. So maybe I'm completing my 7-year cycles, and I'm starting new cycles, and I'm continuing to show up, and I'm learning, and I'm growing, and I'm expanding, and I'm humbling myself because the more I know, the more I learn, the more I realize I don't know. But the more I don't know, the more I begin to declare. Because I always say, and this is the biggest takeaway from that last season where I was transitioning into who I am today, and that is a blank canvas is an opportunity. When you don't know, that means you can create what you want it to be. When you don't know what it is, then you get to create what you want it to be. And that's exactly what I did when I said, okay, I'm a clarity coach. That wasn't a thing. I made it up. And I made up a definition. And then I made business cards and I handed them out and I built a business and I got clients and I created courses, and that paved the path for me to speak at corporations and educational institutions and nonprofit organizations and all kinds of things, community events, because I declared, this is what I am. I declared, this is what I am. And if this is what I am, then this is what I do. And then when I started to do the things that aligned with who I believe I am, the world started to adapt. Other people saw me the way I saw myself, and they responded in kind by giving me more opportunities to step into the doing as a manifestation of the being. This is who I am. This is what I do. Oh, this is what you do? Come do that over here. Certainly. And now I'm living the life that I saw for myself then. I'm living that now. So the life that I see for myself up there, that I see for myself now, I expect to be living in about 7 years. So I am excited to be entering the doing phase of this, the maker, the manifestation of my being. The doing is the manifestation of the being. When I am being who I believe I am, what I do is a reflection of that, is a manifestation of that, is an embodiment of that. And then the consequences of that is that however my being is reflected in my doing, that will be what I attract. That will be what people reflect back to me. And if I don't like what I'm seeing, then I get to change what I'm doing, which means I get to reconsider who I'm being. And I just keep doing that. I just keep doing that. And that's messy as hell. So it's getting ready to get real messy, but I'm excited about it because I understand now what that even is and why it's so necessary. So, yeah, stay tuned for, I don't know, whatever's next.